Coming in at number 11, Tennessee. The Vols, they made it to the big dance, but the music stopped immediately as soon as the ball was snapped. The number 11 finish and minimal losses in the portal have definitely helped Josh Heupel feel hopeful about his group getting over the hump. But, man, those losses are going to be tough. Running back Dylan Sampson off to the NFL. But the big one, Nico is back. Looking forward to seeing the number 3 offensive tackle, David Sanders Jr., right in front of him. So as we look at what they've brought in, what they have going out, what does Tennessee need to do, and did they do it to get over that hump?
I think they need to get more explosive on offense, right? Nico, they got to figure that out. If you chart the explosive plays, what it looked like early on in Josh Heupel's time at Tennessee, they've gone down, and they've gone down in these losses. Against Ohio State, I think yards per attempt for 3.9. The wide receiver position, to me, have teams figured out the scheme, and Tennessee wants to run the football. Dylan Sampson's out, so I think a lot of what we're going to see from the Volunteers, it's going to sit on the shoulders of Nico, a guy that, needed to not only progress as a passer, like we love the raw arm talent, but as a decision maker. You think about him, the last 2 seasons of him in high school, he only threw like 400 passes. I mean, most of these senior quarterbacks, they throw 400 in a single year. So he was a guy that really didn't have a lot of game experience. And then you throw him to the fire here in year 2. For me, they got to get more explosive. I think there's some parts that are already there. I think they've maybe added a few through the transfer portal and maybe potentially some from the high school ranks. But my big question mark, Nico, right, does he take that next step in 2025?
They're a really good team that's banking on continuity. To really kind of piggyback off of what Andrew said, because you look at what they've done this offseason, certainly there are a lot of pieces that you like via the high school side. You wonder how many of those guys that are going to contribute in the short term in 2025 that are really going to impact the college football playoff race and really kind of what that looks like. Now in the portal, they go out, they get Star Thomas from Duke, a really quality running back. You think about Wendell Moe, they bring over from Arizona, plug-and-play interior offensive lineman. Sam Pendleton, that we just talked about Notre Dame, was one of those young offensive linemen promising that got pushed out. He'll be ready to go as well. You think about the guys that they lost as well. I mean, we're talking about 2, potentially 3 offensive starters on the offensive line. You think about Brew McCoy, Dante Thornton, Squirrel White in the portal, off to Florida State. Defensively, which carried this team, right? Let's be very, very matter of fact about that, because I think a lot of people associate Tennessee with offense. They just extended Tim Banks. That was the identity of this team. James Pierce is gone. Omar Norman Lott, that a lot of people, NFL evaluators, think could creep up into day one, he's gone. And that linebacker, Peely, he's gone. That team was completely different when he was in the lineup. Out, they didn't look like the same defense. Now they got a lot coming back in the secondary. But you look at Tennessee, and it's like Andrew said, what are you banking on, right? Because it really kind of looks very similar to what you had last year. And in a lot of ways, you're losing a lot of key guys. So it comes down, can your quarterback make this sizable step to where you're looking at that game versus Ohio State? And Andrew always asks this question, do you trust Nico Iamaleava to win a playoff game? And at this point, I don't know the answer to that question. Right now, if I had to bet on it, it's no. So he's got to continue to play into the ceiling of what we think he can be. He's had some flashes, but to Andrew's point that he always brings up, Nico hadn't played a ton of football. So this last year is very valuable to him. This offseason is critical, and it's a big question mark going into next year.
Okay, but it's like they're running it back, and they lost their best offensive player.
And best defensive
player. Now, Josh Heupel has exceeded expectations for me when it comes to him recruiting. And I point to that 2024 recruiting class, like Peyton Lewis is a running back we liked a lot. We saw a little bit of him this past year. Is he ready to step into that role? Is it Dwayne Morris, a young guy? Is it going to be a committee type of approach there? I think the big one that has to hit for Tennessee, or it's actually 2 guys. Mike Matthews, the wide receiver, borderline 5-star prospect for us in a generational year. He needs to take the next step. And then Jordan Ross at that edge rusher position. He's got to be ready to go. Cooper, he was one of our biggest risers. You love this kid down the stretch. We loved him in the All-Star season. And we knew it wasn't going to be right away. But can he be like James Pierce? Can it all come together? That's going to be huge for Tennessee. You said it, they carried them. The defense carried that group. 6th in total defense, 7th in scoring defense. I think a lot of people are like, whoa, that unit was that good. We've been saying it for years. Tim Banks, what they've been able to do, they keep stacking talent on defense. This unit's ready to go. But hey, Jordan Ross, got to be the guy.
I was about to say why we have the opportunity. It's probably good to spotlight him a little bit. He's a second-year 5-star, didn't play much last year. When he did play, had some flashes. Andrew mentioned it. James Pierce is gone. This kid's got huge shoes to fill. I think he's ready. He needed that developmental year, but I think it's going to be a breakout year for him.
So you mentioned in the 2024 guys, obviously when we look at this recruiting class in particular, all eyes go towards David Sanders Jr. But what else do they have in this 2025 group coming in?
Tight end Deshaun Brame. I mean, this guy, I think at the top of our rankings, you look at the top 4 tight ends, it's kind of top 4 or 5 tight ends. Choose your flavor in terms of who you like. And I think Deshaun Brame, who Tennessee flipped from Oregon. I mean, this was a recruiting battle that went back and forth back in June when much of this is all going on. I remember being with Tom Loy. We were at some event, and he's just getting all the information. This kid was all over the place. I think for Tennessee, he fits that Josh Heupel offense, and it's really because of the alignment flexibility. You can attach him, you can detach him, you can put him in the wing, you can put him in the backfield, you can put him in the slot, you can put him out wide. He was excellent out in Hawaii at the Polynesian Bowl, 98 receiving yards, a long touchdown in the actual game. Dig into his senior tape. Gatorade Player of the Year in Kansas, which is notable because Lincoln Cure, our number 1 ranked tight end, he is also from Kansas. Deshaun Brame, a guy that's 6'4", 235 pounds. He returned 3 punts for touchdowns. And I know it's not the highest level of competition there in the Sunflower State, but dude, you're 245 pounds. You're making people miss. That is a big deal. So he's one where Cooper brought this up when we were in the rankings chat, like, is he who we thought Ethan Davis was? And for those not familiar, Ethan Davis, former 4-star tight end, kind of same thing. This guy, the alignment flexibility, he's been injured. Maybe Deshaun Brame is that guy that kind of unlocks things for Nico, for the running game, for the passing attack.
Trust me, I know better than anybody. It's really fun to just drop a really tough question in there and then walk away. But what would your answer be to that question?
Oh, re-say the question. I was doing some research over here.
Is he what we thought Ethan Davis was going to be?
I think so. Yeah, for sure. And it was kind of funny because we were watching that first drive of the Polynesian Bowl, and it was Hassan Longstreet, right, and Deshaun Brame, who saw this guy move around a little bit. It's kind of funny because when you think about these guys like special category H-backs a little bit, Kenyon Sadiq kind of came to mind, maybe not the athlete a little bit, who I think is a budding star up there in Eugene. And, to Ethan Davis's defense, we were convicted in him coming out. He's been banged up, which is something that he dealt with coming out of high school as well. They've kind of missed that guy a little bit, that versatile kind of Swiss Army knife H-back that can line up in line, that they ask a lot to do in the passing game as well. So, yes, a very big fan of him, and I think he's going to be a really fun player.
A lot of pieces to work with here in the 2025 class, but certainly once you reach the big dance, that's just going to be the expectation moving forward. So a lot of pressure there on Tennessee, and our friends at Go Vols 24/7 have you covered for all things Vols coverage. They are the one-stop shop if you are a Tennessee fan. Head to govols247.com.